Worlds are colliding tonight. We got some Comicsgate, we got some Fandom Menace, and we're just going to mix it up a little bit and discuss, some opinions, some products, and going from there. Tonight we have Adam Post joining us. What's up, my brother?
Hey, great to be here. How you doing, Red?
I'm great. Wonderful. Author Stephen Walton is joining us also, author of for the Fandom Menace Volume 1.
I can't tell you how free I feel now that I've identified as a woman.
I'm very happy for you.
South Park episode.
I just watched that tonight. It was awesome. Mike Rogers is with us also. He's partnering up with Steve on this project. What's up, Mike?
Not too much. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Thank you for having me here, Gaze. Nice to meet you, of course, Adam, and good evening, of course, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm excited to be with you guys tonight. I'm actually in the pre-show. I'm learning things about what the Fandom Menace is, and I thought I was like relatively sharp, and I know I miss things from time to time, but I just thought I wasn't Star Wars enough. Like I didn't know Star Wars well enough to be involved with any Fandom Menace stuff. But I'm learning Fandom Menace is not just Star Wars, Adam. I don't even know like when Ethan has his High Council meetings with other people in the high. Like if is that. Like, so tell us what Phantom Menace is and what it encompasses, and then tell me, like, as a little sub thing about what the High Council show is, because I don't even know what the heck that is.
Okay, well, I'll leave the High Council structure. I'll do the little intro part, and then I'll pass the High Council stuff over to Steven, and that way we can kind of switch it up, and I won't talk too long because sometimes I do.
I do always, you know.
That's okay. I think most of us do. That's why we get along so smashingly. In any case, like we were saying earlier in the green room, the Fandom Menace, it isn't just like a bunch of people that are nuts about Star Wars. I mean, there's lots of those, and lots of us of those people too. But it's really an all-encompassing part of what I call the Indosphere, which encompasses Comicsgate as well, for those that might be, familiar with Comicsgate, like an umbrella of like-minded and like interests that are shared by this really massive group of people. And so it goes from everything from Doctor Who all the way up to your very, very scientifically minded and more sophisticated types of like Trek types of enthusiasts, and all the science fiction and fantasy in between.
So really, Comicsgate is part of the Fandom Menace.
No, I think that people that identify as Comicsgaters also participate heavily on the Fandom Menace community, because the Fandom Menace is more of a community of overlapping interests. Basically, it's just this large collective of overlapping. There's cinematographers and videographers and authors and artists and comics people, like pencilers and colors and writers, and also like the overlap of back in, I think I was telling you just before, if you follow Comicsgate, you'll know when Ethan started to do quite a lot of Star Wars material, and some of his comic enthusiast people were like, well, why does this seem so important at the time? And the reason why was because the two communities have such similar interests and also socio-political viewpoints more recently, and the overlap that occurred around the spring of 2018, it crystallized like this huge awakening of a whole bunch of different people. It's like everybody had a set of binoculars and they could all see in a certain field, but it was sort of like they got to put all their binoculars together, and the widening of the field just went, oh, you mean the industry's doing that over here too? And all of a sudden, it was just like a wow moment for a huge community all over the world. And so that's what the Phantom Menace really is.
Interesting. Really interesting.
As far as Ethan and the High Council, and anybody that knows Ethan from Comicsgate might know, Stephen can tell you all about what his involvement and what it means to the Phantom Menace's High Council, which is pretty amazing turn of events, actually. So go ahead and tell us about that, please, Stephen. And
I had seen Ethan's videos here and there. I'm not before he was doing any kind of Star Wars stuff, when he was I think he was still working at DC. This is just before he left, and so I didn't really know Ethan Van Sciver that much. I hadn't been into comics in about 15 years, but when I first was introduced to him, it was through World Class Bullshitters. They did a show called The High Council with your boy Zach and Ethan Van Sciver, and that was my first introduction to him, and that's when I realized that he was into Star Wars, and he was seeing in Lucasfilm, Disney Lucasfilm, what had happened in his beloved industry, and that he'd been in for 20 years. And Ethan, as I grew to know, was kind of pushed out of that professional sphere, the DC Marvel sphere, by ideologues who thought the same way that the people that were running Disney Lucasfilm had gravitated to, that had attracted it, or Kathleen Kennedy. So the High Council eventually crystallized into Ethan, Jeff Hicks, World Class Bullshitters, and Jeremy Griggs from Geeks and Gamers, along with a whole bunch of other people that would come in, like Cecil. Jeremy Hambley showed up once, and a lot of other people just kind of gravitated in and out. Mahler and his crew. But the High Council became the central point and really the nexus that brought together people in the indie comics sphere and people that were interested in Star Wars and science fiction, that had all come together and seen this shift in ideology, where our beloved franchises that we had loved for so long, and that includes Marvel, that includes like X-Men and those types of things, and that they were being used as a platform to espouse socio-political propaganda. And so that coupling of Ethan and the Jeremy and the World Class and all of those others really brought us together, and like Mike had said, realized that, oh, you guys are going through this too. And so that's when you had a lot of cross-pollination between different personalities that were not only supportive of Comicsgate, but then became supportive of Fandom Menace. The two movements, and now, in my opinion, in the way that I wrote it, the Fandom Menace a lot of the values come from Comicsgate, and that's due to Ethan Van Sciver's involvement.
Cool.
Comicsgate, as far as I see it, I'm not a Comicsgater. I do support Comicsgate. But as the way that I see it is, the guys in Comicsgate all support each other. You're all indie creators. You help to push each other's platform. You work together. The different people that work on comics, and you really there's a lot of help that goes on, helping
a lot. Yeah,
and that transferred into the Fandom Menace. So where we do that as well, but on a YouTube scale. We different channels that are growing, and we reach out and we help them grow and get them exposure, and have join each other's streams. The odd thing about me, and at this point, is that I am writing a novel on the Fandom Menace, chronicling these events that tying from Comicsgate to where we are, or Gamergate to Comicsgate to where we are now. Mike and I are kind of pioneers at the moment, because we're centered on the Fandom Menace with these volumes, and where Comicsgate has this built-in infrastructure to help support one another and help support independent productions, comics, not like independent productions. The Fandom Menace doesn't have that, so we're kind of pioneering and trying to get people's attention. And I haven't really delved too far into Comicsgate, but out of respect for Caesar, because I'm writing for him. I'm writing about, not for him. I'm writing about him, and the only interaction that I've had with Ethan has been, Steve, I know of your book. I think you should remain impartial, and I look forward to the finished product. So I have been reluctant to reach out to any Comicsgaters and try and get any kind of help from that, or advertising, or getting the word out from that sphere, because I don't want to step on Caesar's toes or show any kind of disrespect. So
well, I assume what he's just saying is just do a good job on it, and don't want to be absurdly one-sided. But it sounds like what you're doing is you're just kind of chronicling events, so things either happened or not, and you're not going to do a one major partisan thing or another. If you're part of something, you're part of something that believes that our franchises, our classic franchises, are being adulterated by social justice warrior junkie politics. So
right.
all you're doing is you're talking about how that's happening and what the reactions have been to that, pretty much, right?
Well, it is opinionated, the way that it's been written. It's very passionate, because I am a member of the Fandom Menace, and I want to show that passion. But at the same time, like Mike and I, we take care to have receipts for anything that we report on, that we report on as factual. We want to make sure that we have those receipts that we can report, say, yes, this is indeed what happened. This is indeed what was tweeted. This was said. This action took place. But as far as the Fandom Menace Volume 1, we needed to go back as far as Gamergate, because that's where all this comes from. All this social justice, the name social justice warrior comes from Gamergate. When gamers were attacked by indie game creators and journalists who banded together to push a narrative of these 30-year-old white racist, sexist, blah blah blahs that were misogynist and attacking women. This
Insert ism here, please. Yeah.
Right, and exactly, insert ism here, and that's where we get Zoe Quinn. That's where Zoe Quinn comes from. This is a woman who was sleeping with 5 different people, including her boss and game journalists, so that she could get positive reviews on her indie game Depression Quest. And when her boyfriend put out a list, it was called the Zoe Post, of all these different things that Zoe Quinn had done. The reaction from the game journalist community was rabid. The actual question of Gamergate was the ethics in journalism. They were questioning the ethics of game journalists who are, basically got caught trading sexual favors for favorable reviews, and the journalistic community, even the mainstream media. And I mean, this reaches so many different names. If you go back and look, came out of this movement. They pushed this narrative of it has nothing to do with ethics in journalism. That has nothing to do with that. It's about 30-year-old white racist, sexist people who want to get women out of games. Anybody that knows nerds and geeks and gamers knows that the coolest thing you can have in your crew is a chick who loves games or sci-fi or comics. Like that is the exact opposite of what dudes would look at.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true. A lot of us have spent decades of our lives trying to encourage women to get into these hobbies.
Right. And so when you find a gamer girl or you find a sci-fi chick, you're like, oh yes, great, I've got the golden goose. And so the narrative that was pushed by the journalism community was they were caught red-handed on an entire list. Mayo Yiannopoulos found a list of over 150 different journalists and publications who were all on the same emailing list, who were all told to put out certain narratives. And one of these narratives was the Gamers Are Dead article, in which 15 different publications put out the same basic article attacking gamers and the gamer identity in protection of Zoe Quinn, who had been caught.
And these aren't like your New York Times and your LA friggin' Sun and all these kinds of national media collusions. These are supposed to be all online, independent publications that are supposed to have some degree of autonomy, and yet here they are, a giant list of them all sitting around swapping an email saying, okay, here's what we're going to do.
It was the first time that people had been caught in mass organizing propaganda, organizing misinformation to control the perception to the people. And they were all far left, and they labeled themselves as social justice warriors, as if it was some form of virtue, and wore it proudly. Whereas now here we are, almost a decade later. Well, it was in 2014, so it was 7-8 years later, and that term has become like poison. But they created it. Just JWs was created by them as a badge of honor, and the movement from Gamergate, the backlash it parallels so much with what's going on right now, in that you had all of these girl gamers, minority gamers, trans gamers that came out and started this hashtag called "Not My Shield" or "Not Your Shield," because the journalists and the SJWs were saying, well, we're speaking out on behalf of Black people, we're speaking out on behalf of trans people and gay people and these people and that people, all these all these well-to-do white young liberals, getting offended on other people's behalves. So hashtag "Not Your Shield" was the result of that. Just all these people from different backgrounds and different ethnicities and different sexualities coming together and saying, no, we are not your shield. But things like that didn't get any traction because the far left, the SJWs, they control the media. And so you have the same thing happen with comics. When you look at people in the mainstream media that are talked about from like Comicsgate, they are sexist, misogynist, racist, blah, 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 blah. Same thing with the Fandom Menace, but they don't even call us Fandom Menace yet. They don't even want to say our name. They say we're toxic fans.
Yes.
And this is all because these people have had control of the media since, and they had this direction too. There was a part that was excerpted out of the Phantom Menace Volume 1 about the founders of Vox and Polygon were at Microsoft Research Committee seminar. So I can't remember the exact. They were speaking to the Microsoft Research Committee in 2008, where they were stating that they were trying to get together, use their power in Silicon Valley, where people traditionally lean left, and in the entertainment spheres, the media spheres, and use that leverage to force out the old Democratic Party if they didn't accept their radical ideology. And that's where you have the rise of these different internet companies who all work together to push the same false narratives onto the people. And we're living in the decade where that work that started in 2008, that came up through 2012 and 2014, and we are now seeing that full-blown the full-blown dream of propaganda, misinformation campaigns, all for socio-political extremist ideology, which has infected our entertainments as a way to condition the populace to think like they think and vote like they want them to vote.
Yeah, man. I'm going to interrupt you guys for just a second. I want to welcome the chat. We had a few people come and go. Sporking News Podcast was one of them. Thanks for stopping by. Lola dropped in to say hello. Hopefully she's still here. Bear Nerd Fun, I believe, was another who came and went. Appreciate you, brother. El Gargoyle popped in. Always good to see him in the chat. And he has a good point also. He says, all came together from the Fandom Menace, Comicsgate, Gamergate. Weeb Wars is one I often forget about because I don't pay too much attention to it. But yeah, that's another one. And yeah, we're all together in this. Lou came and went as well. Appreciate you, brother. No Way Neophobic is here with us. Kermit the Log is always welcome in the chat and on the show anytime. Ted Lehman's in the chat. What's up, my brother?
Ted Lehman, great artist.
Lehman, yes, love that guy. And of course, speaking of great artists, we got Sim in the chat also.
El Simon Simpotier.
Is Simon there?
Just come in. We got Argentico 2003. So thanks everybody for joining us. We're just mixing it up with Comicsgate and the Fandom Menace and talking about, what we talk about. Comicsgate and the Fandom Menace, and of course, Steve and Mike's book.
So the major companies that make games, that produce entertainment, whether it's comic books or movies or TV, they're all being put upon by larger powers that be that want this social justice warrior stuff. They're pushing it. They're making it the new norm.
Well, they've tried to do such a thing, but I mean, inevitably, this is where the overlap of it's not politics anywhere in the indie I don't think, and it's a socio-political problem, but it's not about politics. Like here's the thing. Comics, I'm a comics person, Gaze is a comics person, and so are you, Adam. So,
sure.
Comics are escapist entertainment, are they not? I mean, truly.
Comics, it's just the medium, so you can tell whatever kind of story you want to tell. But when you have one-sided propaganda and the characters only serve that propaganda, and it's not like a multi-dimensional relatable story. Like Spider-Man, there's a point to that story. The point is not, and you're a racist. The point was, with great power comes great responsibility. And
you're a racist.
And no, nothing about being a racist or joining the military. Just a straightforward, clean message of like, you could learn this thing and carry it through your life. No hate, no accusations, just straight up, hero relatable story. But even the concept of a hero in a story like the original Star Wars is something these guys don't like. They don't like the traditional Western civilization hero's journey story. They want just bizarre, flat propaganda stuff. They don't want to inspire people to overcome obstacles. They don't want to show flaws.
Well, and you see, that's exactly what we mean. And escapist entertainment is what I mean by that is like when we watch a show like Star Trek, we want to escape into the future. When we watch a spaghetti Western, we want to, get back into an adventure kind of we want to escape the mundane. We want to experience some fiction, and that, escapism in entertainment is is getting away from that, real life mundane, and just being able to have some kind of breathing space as a human being, thinking, imagining. And as a medium, comic books, movies, these things are supposed to be escapist entertainments. Some of these things, most of these things, are for people to be able to escape that real life mundane. These are the things that allow us to have our dreams. Okay. And what we're saying is that get the effing politics out of our escapist entertainments. Like, this is where we come to dream. We don't need your crap in here. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Oh yeah, I know completely what you mean.
it's we just want movies. We just want comic books. We just, can we? It's just sort of go bother, like, stay in your own lawn, like, go bother somebody else type of thing. Like, it's getting old now. Like, we talked about it since comics Gamersgate. I mean, this is getting on a decade now. Enough's enough. Like, leave us alone. And that's why the Fandom Menace is so large. And that's why everything is converged. It's because it's all these different fan groups, you see.
And also because some of these entertainment properties, they inspire deep thought. They are intellectual or spiritual or philosophical. You've got a story like Star Wars, which is about a person learning to grow and overcome, and then redemption. I mean, the theme, the spiritual and philosophical theme in that is pretty deep when you look at the overall saga. With Star Trek, you have a lot of intellectual themes. This is highbrow science fiction. These things have now been dumbed down for two reasons. One, so that they can inject their sociopolitical ideology into it, and two, so they can dumb down this next generation so they don't think too much. They're more malleable. They're more easily bendable. They can be more controlled. And then out of that, you get a dumb population of unimaginative adults who all want to vote the same way. It does have to do with politics, but not on our end, on the creators' end, who are perverting these things and using them as tools to change the way you vote and the way you think.
And with the bigger companies, are dictating to the creators, and then they're also favoring and selecting creators that want to follow these kind of wacky political agendas.
Absolutely.
And the scary thing is, and I noticed this a couple of years ago, and I was surprised to see this because I grew up at a time, I mean, I'm only 49, but I grew up at a time where, like, dollars and cents really meant a lot. And that was the major consideration for how things got done. And they don't seem to have the same concern, when it comes to producing entertainment now the same way. And it's really more like, well, we have power and we have an agenda. And I'm a pretty avid watcher of finance and CNBC and whatnot. And just a couple of months ago, this business roundtable, which is basically like a bunch of big CEOs getting together, made a public announcement saying that they were now going to, instead of just focusing on profit for the corporation, they were going to start to focus on other social priorities, to not just always be putting profit first. I mean, they're just openly saying, like, don't go measuring things by profit and loss. We're going to be measuring them based on basically poisoning the mind of the population and controlling the population to do what it is we want to do. So have you guys seen success in, any of the Fandom Menace or any fans approaching bigger companies saying, hey, listen, stop it with this crappy SJW stuff. We want the real content again. Stop telling us we can't have sexy girls in video games. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, have we seen anybody ever, any of these big companies respond and be like, okay, we heard you, we're going to change? I mean, I saw they did that with Sonic the Hedgehog, the character design, but that's not what this is.
I'm the editor around here, and Stephen's a very talented writer, and the way he's approached this book, just so that everybody can understand, because this is just the first of five volumes. And so, like Stephen was saying, this basically the first volume says, how did we get here? So, like Stephen said, it begins in the Gamersgate sphere of, sort of like this mysterious, hidden, what the hell is going on here type of thing. And it moves through, Ghostbusters and Battlestar Galactica, all the way through to Comicsgate, and it goes all the way through it, as far as any kind of fandom that you can imagine. And Stephen's interests, obviously, and his ideas, as considering these things. And so when we get to the period where we're at, and why Stephen really wants to compile this, is because Stephen got to a point in this journey as a fan in this community, in this indie sphere that, you know, encompasses Comicsgate and Fandom Menace and all of this, where he's like, this is an incredible community. So it's really going to be a reflection over 5 volumes of who are, like, you know, our man Gaze here, for example, and, you know, our brother Frog, who came to visit us here a little bit earlier here, I saw in the chat, you know, like all of these people that are part of our community and that make up all of this tapestry of awesome that we talk about all the time. That's really what we're going to be reflecting. So the first volume is just how did we get here? And as we move into different volumes, it's going to be more of a celebration of the different members of the community.
So I think the project you guys are doing sounds freaking great. Argentinio, thank you for that great compliment, by the way. I just had to say that. I just cannot acknowledge that. But I guess as I'm looking at it, and I think I see, I've seen Ethan Van Sciver say this pretty well. The big companies are not going to change because they don't give an F, you know, and you've got like Marvel is selling a lot of comics to libraries now. So Captain Marvel might actually be the biggest selling comic book in the world because they just sell them, you know, every library, 100 copies, the libraries throw them away or put 3 on the shelf and put the rest in a dumpster. It's
well, that's
all
right. You and I know the difference between sold and shipped, right?
Well, except that when you ship it to a library, you know, some county is paying for it. It's not that the libraries aren't paying, right? So, but my point is, I guess that I'm saying is not that you got. I think it's great that you guys are doing the project and chronicling it and galvanizing the Phantom Menace community. It feels more and more like we just have to say, well, all right, if you want to ruin these characters and these properties, ruin them. F all of them, because there are a lot of creative people and new people being inspired to create that want to make just good content.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's just it. And I think a lot of us are ready to say goodbye to some of these franchises, you know, and just get into some new stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's sort of like
because we're fed up. We're to that point.
What's it like in Pet Cemetery when those pets died and then they came back? Sorry for the spoiler, but they're not. They weren't the same. You know, it's like it's not the same. It's like it's a thing now. It's a monster. It's been turned into an effing monster. So forget that. And you know, there are not everybody, but there are plenty of great creators, more than enough that we could make comics. We can make, which we're doing now. It's the easiest thing to make compared to, say, film and games and stuff like that. Probably, I'm assuming, games at least, and you know, TV and whatnot. But there are other companies out there. There are other people out there that can do stuff. I think Fandom Menace is a force that, you know, can harness it, you know, itself and kind of like come up with even if it's not formal, like an agenda to just say, listen, you guys make your crap. We're just not going to look at any of it. We don't care. We're going to feature the stuff that we think is legit and we want to see more of. And, you know, Joker, that Joker movie is a good example of like, it was like a $60 million movie. It's going to do $1 billion this week, I think, finally, with the international box office. It's not controlled by China. And you know, no business in China for that Joker movie. So really, anything is possible if we start small and we keep organizing and figuring out who do we want to support, what do we want to support, and not support it for any other reason than we really like it and we think it's good. You know, and what I try to tell people about some Comicsgate guys too, like if we do a show or whatever, I'll also point out like one of the reasons we want to support somebody like this guy, Tales from the Classroom. It's sort of I call it Voniverse type of book. It's similar to Von Klaus's Monster MD, if you've seen it. Like similar that it's in the same kind of world. They're like monsters that are high school kids or something like that. But it looks very cool, and you want guys like that making comics because you know he could put more comics out and make Comicsgate stronger. So yeah, I think the potential is there. I see a lot of guys doing great stuff. And what I like to see a lot is not everybody is, you know, doing superstar numbers. I just did more than we just cleared 8,000 on College of the Dead, which was great. My goal was only, yeah, thanks, man. I mean, still in demand, collegeofthedead.com. It'll get you right there. And we're going to do that one's black and white. It's 140 pages. We're going to do volume 2 in color. So, you know, we're up in the game there because we had the success on number 1. And the goal was only 5,000 flexible, and we exceeded it. I'm really happy that we did. But that could be a TV show, that could be a movie, you know, and I have other projects. Other people have other really cool projects too. And guys who know how to make games, like we could collaborate, make a College of the Dead game, or someone else who got a successful game. Well, we could do a comic based on that, you know, just to cross-pollinate, support each other.
Well, see, I'll read something to you. I'll share something from you from some of the beginnings of the book, if you'd like, Adam, and
Sure.
do a little bit of an expose on Red's sublist here as well for everyone as well. It's just part of my thank yous, and it just has to. The only reason I thought of it was because exactly what you were talking about this, the crossover and the support. And Stephen, when he's talking out there, he's very adamant about these things in the Fandom Menace community about this type of support, and that's. I mean, Red Gaze has always been a real community-minded person. Angus, like some of these other people, like this is a community. And Flipped Out, I see is here. Hey, it's a very community place. So I just wanted to read a little bit of part of my thank yous, and it relates a little bit about what you were saying, and we can talk a little bit more about it, about this overlap of talent and new industry. Okay, and so
of course,
you might find this interesting. To Ethan Van Sciver, our Uncle Ethan, my very special thanks. I wrote to you as this whirlwind began almost 3 years ago now. I told you then that you had inspired me to get back into writing very seriously, and that spirit has brought me here. So thank you. Perhaps you might remember that I shared some thoughts with you, and that I pondered something along these lines. We should enjoy this quiet time now. This thing will grow. It will get bigger than we imagine soon. We'll look back at this peaceful time during the build-up with envy and wish we were back here. And so just look where we are now. I knew things would grow, but I never imagined that we would all be in the middle of creating these new industries, these new crafts, these new collaborations together in such a massive way. I never dreamed that we could all embark on a journey with all of those in search of those same things today, and for those who will come tomorrow. So I'm happy to be here, and if not for you, Ethan, it would be a far more stale and colorless place. So that's just part of
It's a great dedication.
Yeah, and I would say I think it really is Ethan that brought together, you know, Comicsgate and the Fandom Menace. And that's one of the reasons why I want to do more of these streams, like with everybody, with those two communities especially, is because I don't understand why more people aren't doing that, why they're not more intertwined. I really think they should be, because it's all the same message, really. You know, we're all just fed up with our own mediums. And
you know what, Red, we should do video. We need to do a video here and there, do more of your crossovers, but a video saying, hey, the Fandom Menace means this, you know, and just try to tweet out a little bit and let people know like what the Fandom Menace actually is, because I'm not completely dense and I'm very involved in Comicsgate. I ought to have known by now. I ought to have come across a video from you or from me or, you know, whatever, any of the other of us guys, Wanga, you know, somebody, you know, making a video talking about it, just so we even understand. Even now, even though it's been explained to me twice, and maybe it's also because I'm tired, when Ethan does his High Council show with World Class Bullshitters, that includes more than just Star Wars, right? It's also games and MCU and
yeah, anything of that nature, really.
Okay,
it's very much. The problem is it very much began with Star Wars. The Last Jedi was kind of like the nail in the coffin that got everybody saying, "All right, fuck this, I'm done." Okay. But it extends far beyond that. I mean, Star Trek is really taking it in the ass as well.
I think it's just well, they deserve it. No, I always like Star Trek, but still, we just need to message it a little bit more, you know, and just put it like, you know, a little bit more explanation out there of what some of these things are, and you know, even if that catches another 25 or 50 people. Half of those might be influencers that retweet other people and have other shows. And we know a lot of guys who run shows. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, Stephen Walton has really been putting the message out lately. He's got his channel really up and running, like big time Fandom Menace guy. He's really getting the information out there. And I'd just like to see us all like intermingle more. And it definitely wouldn't hurt. Maybe each of us could put out a video.
I didn't even know. I really didn't even know that I am Fandom Menace. I am, you know, I'm very much so. I just didn't even know.
Hail, brother!
I just discovered it tonight.
Well, you know, and you know what's funny as well is, you know, I'm in a Twitter DM group with these guys, and a lot of them didn't really even know about War Campaign, and they all popped in, and they all love it.
Oh yeah, how do you not?
Yeah, War Campaign. Yep. Reached out to Ro. I have a author interview show every Monday, where I interview an independent creator and try and highlight them. And It's not. It's more about the audience getting to know that person rather than the personality. You know, because everybody has a certain personality when they put on a show. You have a certain brand that you push, even if it's just a little bit, just a little difference in how you present yourself. And so I like to have that show so that people can come on and be themselves, interview them. And, waiting for Roe, I talked to him a few weeks back, and he said he was busy. As soon as he's not busy, I'm going to have him on so that I can introduce the Fandom Menace to Roe and who he is.
Oh,
and
very cool.
Try and get that, because like Gay said, I don't understand how more of us aren't working together.
Yeah, we just don't know what the Fandom Menace is, and it's a little intimidating if you're not a Star Wars expert, because you kind of like, I care about and I'm interested in Star Wars, obviously the older ones, but I'm not like Star Wars ninja or whatever level that I can have conversations about it. Yeah, it sounds like I got completely the wrong idea. Kermit the Log said something really funny.
He always does.
Yeah, he goes, Adam Post, I am Fandom Menace curious too. All right. We may
there's all sorts of backhole over there, so help yourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you don't by any means have to be an expert. Like for example, I consider myself somewhat of a Star Wars expert. However, Star Trek, I'm a casual fan. Doctor Who, I barely even get into. It's just, you can be a casual fan and still be pissed off that these stories are being twisted into this, indoctrinating bullshit.
And there's a channel out there that will commiserate with you and give you information and outlooks and opinions on those things. You could just like the original trilogy and have not liked the prequel trilogy and not gotten into the expanded universe and still be a part of the community.
I've been doing videos, my Adam Post Speaks channel. Everybody subscribe, get me over 500. I'm very close. But I've been doing videos. Thank you, brother. Then I can sub back to you. What you're at, is that your Twitter or what is your
That's my Twitter. My YouTube channel is author Stephen Walton.
Okay, I can find that. But I've been doing videos on Get Woke, Go Broke, on the Terminator movie, Terminator Dark Fate. Get Woke, Go Broke on the Batwoman, Supergirl, because their ratings keep freaking falling apart. A little Star Wars, and I also did actually a really interesting video that was really well researched about 2 months ago about this ridiculous, like, communist type organization that is sending diversity police into film studios.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's absurd. And basically, it's run a lot the way that China runs its Ministry of Information. And actually, I have links to their the references of articles talking about this and how they do stuff in China, because China approves all content inside and like that comes into China, and anything that they broadcast from China, it all goes through one approval process. And if you don't make it through there, you don't get done. It doesn't get out. So I don't know. I don't recall the names of these things off the top of my head, but I'm going to find the video and I'll share it in the chat so Red has it. But yeah, there's this creepy guy, Jeff Skoll, that created like the Skoll Media Center. He was a multimillionaire or billionaire from eBay, and he started screwing with this. I mean, they're really messing with stuff behind the scenes and trying to make people think that this is organic when it is not. There's no public disclosure of, well, by the way, we are into and involved with and threatening everyone we possibly can to influence and threaten people that they need to do things the way we want them to do. It's creepy as F. And I just finished reading a book called The Big Picture that a friend of mine recommended to me. It tells the story of the Sony hack, if you recall, the Sony hack with North Korea.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things that's like so insane in there is, okay, so it's a movie industry book, and it's talking about how much the movie industry has changed and how China has been investing in movies. Now, we kind of all know this, but it's just weird to hear the guy openly say how, like, well, China views this as a way to use soft power to influence the development of the United States. So literally they're using a term like, yeah, of course it is soft power, meaning in other words, instead of like having war with us, they will put money into control our entertainment products. And so they do it, and so they're effective with it, and like it's it's like a cultural coup. It's completely ridiculous, but it's not like a supposition like, well, do you think it might be? It's like, no, they're openly saying that they do that. And so I'll have to find a reference for it, but the book is called The Big Picture, and it's a story of the Sony hack. It's also very interesting because they talk about film and TV deals, Spider-Man and Marvel stuff. It's kind of inside baseball, kind of interesting stuff. But when they start talking about how China has been investing in the West in its media to control and influence its media, especially when they protect theirs so closely, deliberately as soft power to manipulate us, that's not cool. That we're losing our rights, we're losing our freedoms that way. Well, and that's what this crap is.
I mean, well, more technology has gotten to the point where if we were to go to World War III, I think everybody loses. So that's not the way to go. It's cultural conversion. That's the way to go. If you're going to go to war with another country, it's going to be controlling the populace, creating revolution, creating cultural upheaval like that. That's the way to go. And the United States is also guilty of that. A lot in Central and South America and other parts of the world. I mean, all the big governments do it. Russia's doing it openly. China's doing it openly.
Honestly, who knows if we are or we're not even involved in what's going on in Hong Kong? We might be. We might be involved in even the swine epidemic or these pig Ebola that China's dealing with now, causing it's nearly causing social unrest because they're there's a ton of articles on this, by the way. Go past the College of the Dead ones, and you'll see if you're curious. Red, I just sent you the articles from that video.
But Adam, I like you. We're going to talk more, brother. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. I mean, it's horrifying. It's like watching an asteroid on its way to hit the Earth. It's like it's coming. The asteroid's there. They're openly talking about it. We need to freaking do something. And hopefully with the administration that we have now, that apparently our government just realized that we have a problem with China. They didn't notice that during the previous administration. But with the current administration, they're like, we actually have a horrible problem with China going on. And they're like, oh, really? Yeah, we didn't notice. Like, all right, well, whatever that was, it was. But, hopefully we're dealing with things. It feels like we are. Hopefully we are. And, we just we got to do our part. Our part is we make the content, and like you guys, you speak up. You say look, this stuff is garbage. If it's garbage, it's garbage. You speak up and say it's garbage. You can't be afraid to speak your mind. If you like it, you like it. That's fine. I actually thought The Mandalorian was pretty cool. It looked like cowboys and aliens. Basically a ripping off, a borrowing of what Jon Favreau did as a director of Cowboys and Aliens. Very similar, and a little bit like Kung Fu. That other cool show with David Carradine, which is being remade with a female lead, as everything is. Kung Fu with a chick now. All right, whatever.
Are they going to have it in the 1800s, or is it going to be updated?
I didn't read that far. It was just like Kung Fu woman. Google that. Boom. You know as much as I do. But yeah, I assume it's not going to be done in the 1800s, but who knows what the hell they do. They do.
I Google that on a daily basis. I just put nude at the end of the search.
Kung Fu woman nude. I am curious about that.
We knew you would.
I'll do it first. I'll do it without nude first, but then I'm going to put nude in.
It's certainly obvious to me, though, Stephen, that Adam obviously is Fandom Menace, and just listen to the things he's saying. I'll read you another piece from our book, just because I want to pump the book, and thank you, Dave.
Yeah, sure.
We had a wonderful another author, Anthony Ergo from England, who forwarded the foreword, which is another part of the book that I'm going to share with you. And he was gracious enough to give that part to us, and it's actually quite a powerful part of the book. And I'm really glad to be able to have that part to put in. It was quite surprising when Stephen first sent me the package of information to start going through my editing. I didn't realize that some of the like there's a lot of contributions that have come from all over the community, including, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers and Ethan and Mecha Random 42, everyone, YouTube's favorite Harpy. And, so this one here in particular, I thought really deserved to go at the beginning of the book. And so I'm going to read this part to you. And it goes along a lot with what you were just saying. So here goes. I'll take a little sip. We do not come together to project a political voice. We work together to protect ourselves and to defend our mates against what we see as bullying from the IPs that we love. We celebrate and enjoy the talents of our variety of community members, and hopefully without molestation. And this is thirsty work. Imagine a world where two reasonable people in a talk about the last Avengers film burst into a heated socio-political debate 5 minutes into a simple chat. Why? We see where this takes us. We see where this is heading. The Fandom Menace have been lumped together with alt-right, racist, sexist, internet Nazi trolls for simply having opinions that are contrary to content makers. We know that we are now designated as the new they, the enemy, the other. The infection of social justice tactics and influence now permeates the entire entertainment industry. It has taken control of everything that we love. If you happen to be someone who does not like the new woke direction of our social climate as it relates to entertainments, you have the bias. And where you expect to find storytelling but find it non-existent next to twisted and forced social and political narratives and propaganda, you are a Nazi. And this is insane, I know. It is insanely divisive social policy and a pathological approach to everyday good people everywhere. This is an attack on individual thought, on opinion, expression. This pathology in our society is an attack on freedom. The Fandom Menace will not be told that our opinions are invalid because they do not align with the narrative of the content makers, their hate mobs, or their shill journos. We do not fall in line with anyone's thinking. We exercise choice, freedom, and expression. The bigotards and social terrorists lie directly to our children's faces, and we fight this tyranny of false virtue. We do not allow the continued use of our entertainment mediums to espouse hateful and ignorant rhetoric that divides and separates people into hateful little tribes. The Fandom Menace supports each other, and we frequently disagree with each other with healthy and very open and sharp ways. Everyone tries to have fun while we're doing it without any fear of outrage or offense taking over absolutely everything or anything. And many people say that our community is a space where they feel they can finally breathe again. And we're proud of that, and we should be. And to those that would silence us, we are the Fandom Menace, and we were created by you. And we will not move on while you destroy the things we love. This is our story, not yours, and it's just only begun. And that was forward graciously by Anthony Ergo, Ruin the Man Baby. He's known on Twitter just this past April in 2019, and we thank him very much for his contributions.
Oh, that's really, really, really well written. That's very cool, and it sounds like a great project. It's live on Indiegogo right now. So Lola,
yeah, I think we got about 10 days left. Is it, Stephen? I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, 10 days left. 102 books left.
Red, you could get Lola to drop in here. I'll just even have to talk. We'll just look at her icon.
Lola's not feeling too well tonight.
No, she doesn't have to talk. I'm saying she, just put her icon on. Like the icon's fine. I'm going to tell you guys about what's going on with Kung Fu. If you remember that David Carradine class.
How's that, Ryan? You can just stare at that for a little bit.
I'm focused on the Kung Fu thing, but I will look at it.
Yeah. Thank you.
In the new take on Kung Fu, and I've never heard this term before, a quarter-life crisis causes a young Chinese-American woman to drop out of college and go on a life-changing journey. So a quarter-life crisis, I guess, is when you're 25 and you're getting too old. So not midlife, like 50. Quarter-life crisis. So she's going
millennial.
Right. Oh, my God, that poor thing. She's 25. She goes on a life-changing journey. She should have had a man and had babies by now, right? She would have no crisis. She'd know what to do with herself. So
make sandwiches.
She goes on a life-changing journey to an isolated monastery in China. But when she returns to find her hometown overrun with crime and corruption, she uses her martial arts skills and Shaolin values to protect her community and bring criminals to justice, all while searching for the assassin who killed her Shaolin mentor and is now targeting her. It's inspired by the original series created by Ed Spielman. That doesn't sound at all like the original series.
I mean, let me. I'd be interested to see what the writers and directors, if they put out any woke comments or anything. Or,
It's just the whole premise is absurdly woke. Like, I'm just saying, like, she's 25 years old. She's having a crisis. What the F is your crisis? Too many boyfriends, too much sex, too much fun, too much partying. Like, all right. So what she's going to do is just drop out of college and go to an isolated monastery in China. First of all, if you remember from Kung Fu, from the original movie, like, you don't just effing go. Like, I'm so freaking bored. All right, I'm just gonna go and become like a ninja. Like, no, you can't just go and become like a ninja. You wait outside of the monastery and you sit there patiently for days with no food as people just, like, die off next to you and leave. And then they say, like, oh yeah, you could come in. This one, nah, you know what? You can't come in. Like, not you, the other one. Like, all right, maybe you get selected. Not like you're having a midlife crisis. This is someone who's, all right, so you're privileged to be brought into the monastery. So then she's going to return to her hometown. Well, do you remember how long it took for that kid? He grabbed the marble out of the master's hand, and then he'd be ready to leave, and then he would burn the sides of his forearms carrying a burning pot. That was the Kung Fu movie. Like, no, this chick is going to go to the monastery, be like, hey, I think I'll be a ninja. Like, so she'll be like a ninja, and then like, what? She's going to go back home after, like, Chai Kwang Chung, whatever his name was there for, like, had to be like at least 10 years, if not 15 years, training to be a monk who would actually, it wasn't just martial arts skills. He had like an incredible insight with nature, and he was being mentored by brilliant people with hidden knowledge.
Adam, you didn't get the memo. Women don't have to train.
Women. Yeah, she's like the Last Jedi. This is like Ray.
Well, we have a term. We have a term over here. It's called Mary Sue. We have that all over. It's a very common term. A Mary Sue. This gifted individual who's absolutely perfect in storytelling.
But she's not even gifted. She just like feels like, well, she's having like a crisis. So you can relate to that. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. What's the answer? Ninja.
And everybody loves an Asian girl. Why hasn't she made a couple Blasians already? I don't get it.
There's no reason for why not. But you look at this, you're like, well, what am I going to do with my life? I'm all the way over to 25 right now. I don't know what to do. Maybe meet a guy, settle down. Like, no, nothing like that. You need to be a ninja girl. You know what? Did you see? This is like that really good movie, Beverly Hills Ninja, with Chris Farley. Just about, yeah, it was as believable. That was an effing comedy. This doesn't make any sense.
Hey, that gave fat men the world over confidence.
So she's going to learn some martial arts skills, and then she's going to go to her hometown, but it's overrun with crime and corruption. So then she's going to use her martial arts skills and Shaolin values to protect her community. It's not going to be good, but it might be a bit funny. But it's just going to be like bad in not a funny way. At least if it was campy, then it would be funny. They need to bring campy back. Anyway,
that's a nice ass. I mean, yeah, we got some spandex in there.
Yeah, how's the ass? That's the only question.
You can't see Batwoman's ass.
I don't think that's going to be so great. We'll make our own stuff. We guys got to make our own stuff. We got to treat our customers right and get the word out. And definitely, the books sound great to get the word out about what the Fandom Menace is.
And I'm all about supporting independent creators. That's become like my new mantra over the last 6 months or so, is just support indie creators, because if the mainstream's going to abandon us, if they, like you said, the franchise are going to abandon us, it's time for us to make our own mythologies. And I hope Comicsgate becomes the mainstream. Yeah, right. They don't not trust it. I hope Comicsgate becomes the mainstream. I hope the Fandom Menace becomes like the mainstream voice of the people. No more shills, no more access media. We're the voice of the general audiences. And while we're doing it, supporting independent creators who are very imaginative and skillful and love the things that they are making, we can have
projects.
Right. We can have 100 George Lucases in the making right now, with people like you making your own content, creating your own legends and lore and mythologies. I mean, it's support independent creators with anything.
And that's what my Comicsgate brothers will understand when I say We were all playing in a sandbox, couldn't get along, start throwing sand, say we couldn't play in their sandbox anymore. So, okay, fuck you. We go and make our own sandbox. And what do? They start throwing fucking sand again. You know,
Yeah,
like
they used it as a litter box.
they just can't get it. And so, like, just for the perspective of the Fandom Menace for this week, all we're doing this week now, it's everywhere. Like, it's literally everywhere. For anybody that's watching the new Batwoman series, okay, what we're into in the Fandom Menace this week, you know, on top of having good news with Mandalorian, is basically waterboarding ourselves over episode 6 of fucking Batwoman. How can it be worse? Like, God.
I'd like to state that I think besides Gary saw one of my videos this week about the Mandalorian. I think I'm the only person that's kind of cautioned everybody about I'm glad that as far as Star Wars goes, I'm glad that the Star Wars community, that part of the Fandom Menace, is happy about something. It's good to see positive talk about something that's come out of Disney Lucasfilm. The problem is Kathleen Kennedy's name is still attached to that. I don't care who created it. I don't care who wrote it. I don't care who directed it. Kathleen Kennedy's name is still attached to that. That story group that she put in place to destroy what we love and use it to espouse that bullshit, that propaganda out of there, they're still there. So are we willing? Are we willing? I akin it to this. You go out with somebody for over 10 years, right? They're a great partner. You love that partner. You guys work together. You put all money and time into it. And then out of nowhere, this person has a mental breakdown and starts doing heroin or something and starts treating you like garbage for about 6 years. And then, just as quick, out of nowhere, they take you on one good date. Are you ready to jump back in bed with that person? No, not me. I'm worried that the Fandom Menace is going to get Stockholm Syndrome, because if we start accepting abuses, if we get one good thing, then really, what are we worth? This is not the time to start paying for Disney Plus. This is not the time to start praising Disney. We can pat them on the head if we think things are done well. In my opinion, you know, y'all do with your money. Y'all have your own opinion. Absolutely, Fandom Menace stands for each of us having our own opinion, doing what we want to do, voting with our own wallets, having our own opinions. That's all well and good, but everybody should tone it down a notch, because you don't know if by episode 3 we're going to find out some woke shit. The woke shoe drops.
Yes,
And
sir.
Stephen
We're all waiting
right.
for that.
I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic about the Mandalorian. Can you throw this screenshot up for us, Gaze?
Yes, sir.
Now, what Steven's talking about in this story group, and I want to make this clear, this woman here works for Lucasfilm. This is Andy Gutierrez, okay? And as you can see, she's a real fan of fans, right? She's an asshole, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at another Lucasfilm-sponsored YouTube-type show, a broadcast, which she hosts, used to be on a weekly basis, and this is an episode that goes back quite far. But if a couple of Fandom Menace people are quite quick on the eyes, and they notice something in a video clip, and so they paused it. And if you look real carefully, this is the Lucasfilm office where the writers group works and the creative group assembles, basically. And this is walking by one of the pods, and there's a poster there of Luke and some other Star Wars characters. And if you look, the guy stopped it and paused it, and I don't know if you can see it very well, but if you use the zoom in that's on Luke's face at the office at Lucasfilm, Luke has a red X across his face. That's what they think of Luke Skywalker. In the office writes the stories of fucking Luke Skywalker. Okay, now that's what Steven's talking about, and he is absolutely right. We cannot accept one good show and think, oh, okay, want to be friends, because it's really sharp. It's not going to be like that. Okay, these people have abused their fandom intentionally to cause more buzz to create money through revenue than they can create through their own damn content, and it's disgusting. As fans and consumers, we're not doing it anymore, and they know it. So, like you're saying, it's time for consumers to, I have a new YouTube channel where I've just started making stupid videos, and one of the things at the end of my video is just this little text frame, and it just says, fans are consumers, dumbass, right? Like, it's really simple. And, Stephen gets quite passionate about that in the book, and I'm quite proud of the work that he's done. So hopefully everybody out there that gets a chance can check it out, please.
Here's the thing. Fans aren't just consumers. If you've been around long enough to call yourself a fan, fans built these properties. There wouldn't be a franchise if it wasn't for the fans that they're shitting all over right now. And that's what they fail to realize.
Yeah.
Well, they're
Go
aware
ahead.
of it. They're abusing power. You know, it's like the same thing as politicians. They have the power. They're abusing the power. And like you look
Well,
at
let's not
politics.
make a mistake. Outrage culture makes money. I mean, let's not make any mistake here. I mean, come on. Like they know that they make more money off of pissing people off than they do making movies. I mean, it's just mathematics. But that's the disturbing part of it. We don't want to do business with people
Yeah,
like that.
well, but they're not so concerned about the money. Like their concern is they must destroy these franchises. The whole SJW thing. My take on it is because I see how China operates. You know, and it's so freaking similar. They need to control every story because every story has to espouse their propaganda. The story cannot exist. There are 5 approved religions in China, which doesn't mean that, oh, why are they approving religions? So you could still be the other religions too, right? It's just not approved. Like, no, if you are not one of their 5 approved religions, they're very unhappy with you. Let's put it that way. You know, there's something called Falun Gong, which is this spiritual practice, this other religion, and it's got like Tai Chi in it type of stuff. I don't know a lot about it, but it's a religion that's not an approved religion in China. There are article after article about those people being just picked up, arrested, literally being used for organ harvesting in major outlets like New York Times and whatnot, like places that would hide that. Google organ harvesting, and you can spell Falun Gong any way you freaking want to. Google will figure out how to do it. It's hardcore, crazy stuff. Of the 5 approved religions in China, they get to pick the head of each of those religions is picked by the Chinese Communist government. So they don't have like, well, but you've got an independent Christianity. You do not have an independent Christianity. Whoever is in charge of Christianity over China knows that his number one responsibility is to please the government, and the government is the one true religion above all religions, above all things. So what we have in our country is, it's unfortunate. We have franchises that we've loved. Like I always liked the Terminator, thought he was cool. I'll be back and all that other stuff. You know, since it first came out in whatever the 80s. And now I don't give 2 craps about it. I don't care about it. Why would I care about it? Well, that's what they want. I'm not saying so go care about it. I'm saying find something else to care about, you know, so that we don't give up caring about you know, things that are special to us, stories that we can relate to as a culture, because we don't care about Star Wars. We don't care about Terminator. We didn't care about Ghostbusters 2016. Let's see what the new Ghostbuster is. We don't know what it's going to be, except hopefully it's going to be good. So yeah, I mean, they want us to not care about. I think the SJW stuff is not to have a big future woke culture that everyone believes in. I think this is the killing of everything good. Hopefully they don't do that to the Marvel properties because they're so legendary. They probably will, but don't invest your heart in it. Don't introduce it to your kids.
Well, you know, Disney is. Go ahead, buddy.
Oh no, I said sorry. I was just going to talk about Ichi for a second, but go ahead.
Yeah, Disney is a company that wants to make money eventually. I mean, they're also being investigated right now. I think Mike can go into that a little bit in a minute. But
I know about it, brother. Yeah, I know about it too.
Okay. So, you know, they're a company that eventually wants to make money. The thing about this situation is that there's a lot of different layers involved. You have the politicians who are far left who want to use the media and their exercise their powers and connections in order to push a certain narratives that people will vote, you know, the way they went to the vote, Orange Man bad and all that. Then you've got the journalists who want access and want to be able to get into those secret meetings and get that first dibs on information. Then you've got the shills who are feeding at the scraps off the table of the access media and these entertainment properties. Then as far as the entertainment properties, you have the producers who are trying to make money, the directors who get paid regardless, the actors who get paid regardless. They can spout off anything they want to spout because they're going to get paid regardless. Then you have the people underneath them. You have the camera operators, you have the grips, you have the stagehands, you have those people who are going to get fired if enough movies fail. So it's in my mind, if there's enough buzz going around that these woke directions aren't working, that these movies are failing, The investors who put up the money for these production companies are going to start worrying as the stocks drop. The grips and the key grips and those guys, the stagehands, they're going to start getting worried as they're getting fired, or they're seeing their friends getting fired because these companies aren't making the money. While the actors and while the directors, these privileged millionaires of woke virtue, preaching from on high to the unwashed masses of the consumer class, while they're still getting paid and walking around sputtering their bullshit. I think that there's going to be a movement within the entertainment industry between their working class, that when their jobs are starting to get threatened, and I think we're kind of on the precipice of that now. I really have a lot of hope for the next Ghostbusters movie, because I think that's a course correct. And if Ghostbusters 3 is done well and the fandom shows up, and I think that they will, I think that's going to send a strong message to the types of entertainment that we are willing to accept. And that's all I have to say about that.
Well, I know what you're talking about with Disney having the accusations of the fraud. I did a video on that too a couple months ago. And there was that whistleblower who was a chief financial officer for them, involved in their theme parks division, and they overstated their revenue, which is also, I also did another video about the Captain Marvel box office, and what they did with what they're being accused of doing with the $6 billion fraud for the theme park division is overstating the money they took in, the revenues. And the way they did it was they sell a lot of tickets of the theme parks at discounts for promotional purposes, resold tickets. And it's also a way for them to be able to say, oh, well, we did more business than we actually did. What they're supposed to do is they're supposed to account for the discount. So if they took in $12 million, if they sold $12 million worth of tickets, but they only took in $6 billion because they discounted them to a lower price, like they went on sale, they're supposed to deduct those $6 billion in expenses. Apparently, they didn't and haven't been in a lot of ways to massage and fake out their numbers. So that's what they're in trouble for. Will anybody go to jail for it and get in serious trouble? Nah, but it might pay a fine of some amount of money, 50 million, 10 million, 2 million, 100 million, an insignificant sum for these guys, unfortunately. So they'll get away with that realistically because it's not big enough. And it's isolated to just that one division. They have so much revenue in so many divisions. The thing about these guys making money that's a little scary is they're incredibly good at making money and also faking making money. And the success of Disney Plus is better than any of the analysts anticipated, and even Disney was hoping. They were expecting and projecting they'd do like 1.9 million subs by the time they launched. They analysts projected, because the early response was pretty good, that they might have 8 million subs by the time they launch. I'm sorry, 8 million subs by the end of this year of 2019. They have 10 million subs, over 10 million subs on the first day, which they could also be lying about. And
yeah, I was about to say.
They could be, but they're probably not, because they're incredibly good at selling stuff to people or getting people to just be like, all right, yeah, fine, I'll just do it. So,
well, Adam, each person that has a Verizon account is automatically signed up for Disney Plus for 1 year. And are they counting the 7-day free trials?
Yeah, they would absolutely count the 7-day free trials. Everyone who has Verizon, any Verizon account, absolutely has access to get Disney Plus. I don't know if they're auto signing them. I assume that they're not, because I think the sign up number, I think Verizon actually does have more than 10 million customers. So even just Verizon alone would be more. But the thing that people haven't been talking about, not even on CNBC, and I'm kind of surprised about that, most of these movies, when they make a Captain Marvel, for example, have what they consider to be like a 10-year life to them. So if they spend $200 million, it's ridiculous, but $200 million to make Captain Marvel, and then they spend another $200 million to market Captain Marvel, then they have 10 years to recoup that, so they can kind of average their expenses as if, so $400 million out of pocket, but they would say, well, but we have 10 years to sell it, so we're only going to spread the cost over 10 years. So it'd be like $40 million a year. So they could show a profit even if they don't get all their money back in. But the problem that we have with streaming now, because Disney loves to play accounting games, is now they can say with streaming, what's the life of the Mandalorian TV show? How many years is that going to play for? How many years is the original Star Wars trilogy playing for? And if it's for a franchise, it's basically them. They can create their own accounting. Big companies do this already, and they don't even get questioned on it when they're big companies. It's kind of amazing. Amazon's worse. But in any case, my point is that 10-year window is probably now like arguably, say, a 30-year window for anything that they're producing that's not like ridiculous. Like, so if they did like a reality TV show, that may only have a life of like 2 to 3 years. But if it's a Marvel franchise or a Pixar franchise, and they could just go back and say, look, how many years have people been watching Marvel TV shows? How many years have people been watching Star Wars movies? We think this has got a 40-year life to it. This kind of accounting gimmickry happened with Blockbuster Video also, where Blockbuster was being accused of taking too many years to say that a videotape would still be usable. And a lot of people were pissed at Blockbuster for that. Blockbuster was actually right about it because you have that rental aspect where it's not like you don't have to take the expense out. So the point is, these guys have ways of messing with the numbers, and no one's going to check these numbers. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the years go on. And it's essentially like a Ponzi scheme, but it's within the law. So I don't think there's going to be any time soon, really, that Disney is going to F up and not make money off their franchises because, like, competitively, the other companies, nobody plays this game the way that Disney does. It's outrageous. It's unbelievable. They're really, like, I'm watching what they're doing. I'm like, all right, it's like next level crazy brilliant stuff. So not that the stories are so well executed, and I hate the SJW crap. It's evil. What they're doing with that stuff is straight up. It's no exaggeration. Good versus evil to want to take away stories that kids need, like, characters to look up to and heroes and things like that, and they're ruining that, and it's nothing less than evil. But the way they play their business game is like the devil playing fucking violin. It's scary good. So that's what I would just say. Like, but as far as making money and investors and stuff, there are always people that want to put money into independent projects. Even if it's just people financing publishing comic books, people want to put money into entertainment projects. Independent people want to actually make money. It's not this weird stock finance game. So we're going to win. We're going to win this thing by saying F the majors, back the indies. If the majors change, whatever, fine. If it's a good story, everybody. The one good thing about The Mandalorian is if they put out one good story, it embarrasses the other guys that have obviously other crappy story. So it's sort of like it refutes their argument that they can just put out propaganda and it's all just the same. No, it's not. So if some people care about it and they like it, fine. That's a positive thing. But they burned down. It's like they burned down the forest and they planted one tiny sapling. So obviously we're not happy that they burned down the forest, and we don't even know if that sapling is going to live.
That's a good analogy.
I was going to make a video based on that because I made one video and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not happy with The Mandalorian. It was okay. It wasn't terrible. But yeah, they destroyed and they literally did burn down a forest. Yoda was like supposedly laughing it up in The Last Jedi. He's like, oh, don't worry, they're burning the forest with all the precious books. What the fuck was that? There's important books in that thing.
See, told you, Fandom Menace.
Yeah, more than I realized. Now I know. I learned something new. I am coming out as Phantom Menace on Red's show.
Yeah, man. If you're disappointed,
I know some of that finance stuff.
Love.
I know some of the finance stuff can be boring, but obviously I'm passionate about it. It's a different aspect.
I enjoy hearing it.
I know what. Thanks. I know what some of the fucking games are that these guys play. I'll tell you something about Amazon. Amazon has the biggest R&D development of any company in the world. R&D, research and development. So drug companies that invest in new drugs, companies that invest in technologies, Microsoft's technologies, Apple's technologies, all these companies that make weapons and make freaking airplanes and special secret projects. Amazon's research and development budget is bigger. So somehow, what they're actually doing is they're taking their overhead expenses and they're stretching them over 10 and 12 years and calling that research and development, which basically is they're gaming the system financially, but no one will even look at it. There have been a couple of articles about this. I was actually tweeting with somebody who wrote one of the articles for Bloomberg, a business magazine, and he's like, yeah, but they approved it. It's just kind of interesting that they have such a huge budget. I'm like, that's a freaking Ponzi scheme that they have such a huge budget. But anyway, don't invest that. Well, I don't know. Amazon's probably a pretty good investment. Apple's been a great investment lately. All right, what is this thing? My favorite thing about Marvel is their crusade to defeat white male privilege and nepotism in entertainment. Good work. Dude, can I have Spider-Man? Did someone honestly say that, or were they mocking?
Oh yeah, we're mocking. I mean, that's one of our
okay.
Comicsgate Trench Fighter Cyber Frog. He's been banned so many times. We don't know what he's called now. But in any case,
that's funny.
Zabalski threw up the -- 1, and of course, it was a bad week for Zabalski. So.
We could really take this shit to Marvel. We could really take it to Marvel and actually have a new universe of characters and nothing with it, just straight up stories. There's always room for every kind of person if they can be a super person, whatever it is. You get the good people involved. You make the good books. You can't do monthly comics, and you can't do like $1.90. Well, Peter Simeti does these $1.99 comics. That works for him because the freelancers are working on a profit participation basis, and there's also no editorial unity except that they're all just kind of good, friendly comics. But like I'm seeing in Comicsgate now, things are working at another level because there are people helping each other. Like there's a guy who found this really good colorist, and he was done with his comic with the colorist, and she needed more work, so he kind of mentioned her name around, and a couple of us have started to do some work with her, and she colored College of the Dead Coup cover for me and another piece for me, and she's really good, and she's coloring Super Harem now for Wanger. But we're just kind of sharing ideas. We're talking about the prices of what we want to charge for books, exchanging ideas for printers. So and encouraging each other, and also telling each other straight up. No, like as one of our guys was saying the other day, like, hey, I want to do this book, not Wanger. I want to do this book, and I want to have nudity in it, like these sexy girls. And I was like, listen, man, you can't do that. And he's like, well, why not? Sex sells. I'm like, yeah, sex sells, but it's not going to work. It doesn't work like this way in Comicsgate, and mostly Comicsgate's not putting out anything like that. And then we were talking about it in another DM group, and I was like, what we want is 90s sexy. If we're going to do that, we need to bring back 90s sexy in comics, because it's not misogynistic. It's just like, hey, it's a beautiful woman. Even it's a really cool looking, strong guy. Like you can actually tell the genders biologically, who the characters are. Like it's fun. It's comics. That's comics. You got to have that. So,
but the question is, are you?
Yeah,
are you going to credit Justin Timberlake with bringing sexy back?
I don't know. That was a good song, but like you don't want everybody to look like Justin Timberlake, like all the males and all the females.
I've already been over this. I'm very disappointed in Onision in this new Batwoman movie or TV show.
Batwoman TV show.
Disturbing.
He literally had Rachel Maddow in that. Like, what are you doing? Well, I guess they're like, listen, if you're going to make this stuff for those Rachel Maddow people, let's see if we can even get her in it, and let's see if that draws an audience. But that's the problem with the Batwoman show. Like, it just got renewed. There's going to be a second season, and
it did get renewed.
Yeah, but did anybody see the 6th episode? I mean, I'm seriously, I can't.
I watched half of the first one, and I'm like,
how can it possibly be worse? I mean, I watched 5, and I thought, okay, I have to give there's got to be something, and then I get the 6th, and I'm thinking, how can it possibly be worse?
This is the problem, particularly with TV, is that like people will binge on TV. So if they can get like Like, so the original, I forgot what I don't know, did they do better than 1 million viewers on the original? I think they did on the first episode. So that they're just going to assume that, like, well, yeah, but they're going to be watched in repeats forever, and it develops, and it's an investment in the franchise. Will they lose money on that? I mean, because, it's going to be, it's going to be on their streaming, and they have HBO Max. I assume they're going to put it on HBO Max, whatever. So it'll be part of the whole DC library. They need content. So it's like, well, we're just kind of making this.
Well, they've got it. They've got it because I think what it's going to end up being in 20 years is the Star Wars Christmas special of the Batman universe.
I don't know. The Christmas special is looking pretty good these days.
The Christmas special is okay.
We're going to have a watch party here before too long.
Oh, the Christmas special? Cool. Yeah, it was good. It was fine. You'd be glad that it existed rather than not exist. And they got Boba Fett in there.
B. Arthur's in it too. I mean, come on.
Yeah, you got B. What the fuck was that? Like, who we need in here? Who? B. Arthur. She's big. That'll bring the kids in. Get B. Arthur.
That was 80s sexy.
I don't know what it. A lot of it's really interesting to see weird stuff. Like, we have weird stuff going on in our culture now. Weird stuff was going on in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s.
Yeah, it was just like you're referring to Big Bush, right?
There's a lot of drugs. You see, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug. Explains a few things. Yeah, it's weird stuff. It's weird to see them messing with stories and free speech and free thought and merit-based things and calling math and science racist. It's like, what do you want?
It's selective science.
Modernize yourself, de-edu-emasculate yourself. Come on now.
It's all dehumanization. It's that when they ultimately get to do what they want to do, which is really unspeakable, but let's say it. It's just like the Nazi war camp shit. When they really get to get rid of the people that they don't want, which is what they do in communist countries all the time. It's normal for communist countries. They have these camps. It's not good. If this country was a communist country, the United States became or essentially was a communist country, it would have those camps for the people that they do not like. China has them. North Korea has them. The Soviet Union had them. I don't know what they have now, but they had gulags. If you Google gulags, and Jordan Peterson refers to a book that he thinks is a great book. And for life, I can't remember the title right now, but Stolfanesky's guy was the guy's name who lived in the gulags. And all right, so the guy was in a gulag camp, and his thing was he had to think for himself. He's like, let me give myself my own personal power back. Let me look at my life situation. I'm stuck in this stupid concentration camp, this gulag. I'll take responsibility and say, I got myself here somehow. Now, how did I get myself here? And by thinking about that and thinking it from that point of view where he took responsibility for his existence and where he was, even though, of course, it wasn't his fault. It's not a normal thing to do, throw people in fucking concentration camps. But because he took responsibility for it, he had a personal power. And he was able to kind of then become optimistic and positive in thinking about how and when he would get out. So, it's a good thing to think about in life is it's always how do we own where we are and own who we are so that we could then change and improve from where we are, right? Really, Jordan Peterson talking about, I wish I knew the name of the book, but the Gulag, Jordan Peterson, trust me, it's worth it to look it up. And I'm not a big, I don't love to sit and just read endlessly. I like it to be told to me. You get a clip of Jordan Peterson talking about it for 10 minutes, you'll be like, wow, that's beautiful. It's very inspirational. And that's my story.
Are you sticking to it?
Yeah. This is truly Adam talking about a lot. MOS would be mad at me right now.
That's all right. Well, we should at some point actually talk about your book, Stephen.
Guys, this is important, the Fandom Menace. I'm going to back this thing. What is this? The Fandom Menace Volume 1? Everybody back this right now. No excuses.
Yes, the fandom betrayed.
Thank you for
I'm
that,
most
Adam.
persuasive when I'm threatening.
Thank you for that, Adam. And of course, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for doing the project. This is a good, this is the kind of thing that we need to have, and also, more engagement.
it's an interesting story because when Stephen began, he basically called on the community to collect submissions, whether they were video submissions or maybe some literary submissions. And he reached out to, pretty much everybody. And I remember in the community, I mean, I know Gaze was around at the time because Angus and I had already met, and it was the kind of the gang at the time with the collective. The fandom was kind of in a buzz. We were quite kind of like, this is exciting.
Oh yeah.
So a few months later, and I made submissions. I know Gaze made submissions. Ethan made, everybody made submissions, and so then we didn't hear anything, and we just assumed as a community that it was just quietly happening in the background, and we're just anticipating, and then Chris, who's in the chat earlier, flipped out, sends me a note and says that I think our Fandom Menace writer is burning out and he doesn't have anybody to help him. And you have free time for you, Mike, and I know things haven't been well and you need something to work on to keep everything focused for you too. So why don't you reach out to him and see if he needs a hand? And so I reached out to Stephen after things kind of stabilized in my own life. And when Stephen sent me the material, I mean, I just assumed that he wanted someone to help him edit, so he could just write and let it flow and not worry about syntax and structure and format or anything. He just, just write, have somebody over his shoulder. And so I just told him to send me a chapter and do what I do, and sent it back the next day. And after, I guess, what I sent back to him, he really liked, and so he invited me onto the project as a co-author as well. And so the story behind all of that coming together was actually kind of an interesting story just all in itself. And I want you to know that when I finally did receive all the information from Stephen that he had compiled of all those submissions and all the material that he had wrote, because there's a lot more that he wrote than there is submissions, I can tell you that. It ended up being so much material that as a reader and a writer myself, I can't put my readers to sleep with a big giant book, and people don't read like that anymore anyway. So I broke everything down into 5 volumes to make it nice and easy to get through. A nice quick book, about 10,000 words per chapter, about 55, about 5-6 chapters a page, 55 words a chapter, a paragraph rather. So, it fits together well. And I hope over the course of the next year, while we release the different volumes, that it'll be more involved as a community project, because of course it's going to start showcasing some of the community in the next few volumes. So,
all right, let me translate that to everybody. Back this project. I just backed it. There's proof. You can refresh it. We got to be into 4250 by now. If I spent my hard-earned Adam money on it, it's got to be worth it. And these guys are good guys. And you guys have been too isolated. I'm glad you did this, Red, because these guys, they're the real deal. I like when you guys read the paragraphs. It's a little, it's like a little like, all right, they're going to really read this thing? And then you read it, but it's really well written. It's very thoughtfully done. There's obviously a lot of time going into this. And what the Fandom Menace is the Fandom Menace is the fans menacing the evil people who are destroying the stuff we love. So we're all gathering together. And
I don't necessarily think we're menacing. It's really like Uncle Ethan really played the terms on it. It's from the Phantom, Menace, the original.
That's why I thought it was Star Wars. It's actually
just a little play on words, and really the title of the community, I guess you could say. It's really just a play on words. I know.
Mainly like the fandom Meshuggahs, so that you're not really menacing anybody. Meshuggahs, like you're just being silly.
Yeah, like it's really just a silly moniker. The SJWs
mockery.
But we are a menace to them.
That's they
menace to society in a friendly way.
Yeah,
the SJW society.
Guys, we could also share this on Twitter and share it on Facebook. It wouldn't effing kill you. So that would be good. Let's share that. Let's get the word out about that. Right, Red?
Absolutely.
Adam, thank you very much. I just got that notification, man. I'm sorry. My internet's a little bit choppy. I've been in and out.
No problem. Yeah, of course.
So much, man,
I'm looking forward to the book. I think it's going to be really interesting. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you guys better. And we should write down let's all write down your YouTube channel as well.
Oh, yeah, I want to have you on, too. I'm going to subscribe to your channel, and I'm going to reach out to you on Twitter.
Oh, Adam Post Says. Subscribe to Adam Post Says.
Absolutely.
Especially if you have an icon like Lola's.
I already follow you on Twitter, Adam, so I'll just send you a note. Do you have your DMs open, or?
Yeah. So
okay, I already follow you. I already follow you, so I'll just send you a note.
All right, give me a YouTube channel again. Other people can find it too.
Nobody nobody wants to watch my YouTube channel.
Bad attitude.
Author Stephen Walton. That's
Author.
my pitch. That's my brand. Author Stephen Walton.
Stephen Walton. All right, and Stephen is PH, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right.
All the good ones are PH.
All the good ones are PH. Yeah, you got to watch out for those V ones.
And thank
Yeah.
you. And thank you to all my Comicsgate family as well, because I know I've been very busy over here and I haven't I've been pumping so many independent projects like I have over the last year and a half or so, and I apologize, but Stephen needs my help and I've been very busy. I want to make sure I do a good job. And
Yeah, you guys are working your butts off for this. How many pages is this book?
Well, he's got me into about 500,000 words now, and I really don't have much fill for the end of volume 4 and 3/4 of volume 5. So we've got a lot of material still to cover, and there's still so many exciting personalities in the community that are still coming up that we have to pay attention to, because over the
what would you hope that this book is going to accomplish, like goal-wise? The goal of this book is to do what? I don't want to put any, attach anything to it that it's not.
Well, I have to leave that to Stephen, actually.
All right, over to Stephen. What's the goal of the book, Stephen?
The goal is to save this information for posterity, so that future people, when they in 10 years, when they look back and say, "Why was entertainment so horrible in the 2010s?" Like, well, what happened? There, they can read this. They will see all of the people that stood up against the evil corporations, and they can read and look at the different news sites that put out this misinformation, and understand exactly what was happening within the fandoms. Because you're going to get two completely different forms of information. When you look back at this time, you're going to look at what the mainstream media, the access to the show media says. You're also going to get these movies tanking and unhappy fandoms and talks of toxic fans. And, well, why did all this happen? Here's the Fandom Menace volumes. This is what happened. These are the people who fought against it and stood up and were our voices during the darkest times in entertainment. And that covers Gamergate, Comicsgate, and the Menace.
You know what? It's the people. One thing I noticed, like hanging around with the Comicsgate people, and maybe it evolves into a different name at some point or whatever. But man, do they care about the stuff that they're doing? Like we talked about passion projects before. Almost everybody I talk to, they're putting out really good looking stuff like Carl O'Rose, Deathsworn, Monster MD from Von Klaus. These are projects they've been working on for like 10 years or, at least 5 years. And they've been dreaming about doing this stuff, sometimes longer. Rob Casey with Cyborg USA. Just people that are really passionate about doing their books, making good books, taking care of their customers, but also passionate about like the other people who they're in a group with making stuff. And that's something that these other, whether it's SJW creators, directors, whatever, they're just scheming and coming up with ideas of like, ooh, here's a way we could embarrass this, whatever. And like, they're not coming together as a group to do something positive, to create something positive. They're just destroying. That's the evil in them. Creating something is positive. Destroying something, is evil. And you have to be good to create something positive. So I see creators coming together doing it. I see that really care about what they're making, but also the other people they're making them with. I see them caring about and regarding and respecting fans. And then the people that split off, that are like were CG or sort of adjacent to whatever, and now they're not anymore. They just don't like being around other creators in that honest way. In that way, not that about lying. It's just like just really caring about the other person, straight communication with the other person, having empathy for the other person. If you look at anti-CG people, for example, you will notice they lack empathy. By empathy, I mean they really don't care what the other person thinks. They only care about their own feelings and how they are perceived and how they can benefit. But you never see like someone reaching out. And it's a bad thing to say about somebody, so I'm not going to name them. But the anti-CG characters are only concerned about how they feel about something. It's never like how the other person feels about something. They're not considering the other person's point of view.
and
And that,
often very much only about their projects. You know,
yeah,
the collaboration isn't there nearly as much. There's some collaboration, but it's yeah.
no, but you will see some people who are very positive people that don't support everyone's projects, but only support the ones that they think are the few most promising. That's a personal choice. That's up to them. They have to decide how deep they want to get in, and they're super careful about their endorsement of, like, everyone's who sees Deathsworn is gonna like Deathsworn. Not everybody's gonna like Cyborg USA. The artist is good and the story is good, but Deathsworn is like next level, happens to be next level cool. It's just that way. It's cooler. Look, my book is really cool if you like zombies, but you put the two books next to each other, and yeah, okay, Deathsworn is this really like cool 80s color thing that like really comes at you and grabs you by the throat. Like, all right, yeah, that's probably more people are going to be interested in Deathsworn than College of Dead. He outsold me. But if you're interested in zombies, I blow Deathsworn away. But just, pound for pound of which one's cooler depends what you like. But yeah, more people like the super color or whatever the hell it's going to be.
Yeah,
But
and
anyway,
it's all about personal taste, really.
In just a minute, Adam, actually, I want to ask you about your project because that sounds interesting to me. But it's all about growing the independent community, because like you said, some people pick and choose what they want to help, and some people only have enough time in the day to help other people while they're doing their own work, and that's why it's important that in the Fandom Menace we have the first wave voices. Those are the guys that started it all. Then you have that second wave that came in just after them that were inspired or kind of gravitated to, may have already had channels, and then they began. Then you have the third wave, like Red Gaze and other people in the community that have really been instrumental in growing everything. They're the ones that have been reaching out, creating connections, having people on different live streams, promoting each other.
Yeah, Red helped me early on. Absolutely.
Yeah, me too. And now you've got kind of this fourth wave iteration coming in. That's learned from the third. It's learned from the Red Gazes and the Black Agus's and those guys. And now it just keeps growing and growing. You can't be everywhere all the time. Like I have phone numbers for a few of the bigger channels in the Fandom Menace, and I'll text them, and I might not hear from them for 2 weeks because they're just busy, and that's just what it is. In the meantime, I can reach out to Gaze, or I can reach out to Lethal, or somebody else in the community, and we can collaborate and do things. It's all about creating the atmosphere of collaborating and that kind of infrastructure, because you're always going to have different people, different personalities. You're always going to have cliques. You're always going to have some kind of tribalism within that. But as long as we have an overwhelming idea of promoting one another, of helping to lift each other up, then there's always possibilities. And I think there's always a kind of open collaboration that can happen between any independent creator.
I'm glad that you said this and kind of dovetailed a bit off of what I was saying and expanded on it. And you know what I guess I'm noticing is, because I'm thinking while you're talking, like, yeah, why do I give an F about Red Gaze or whoever else? Like what do I care about these freaking people? But the reason why I care, yeah, we have mutual interests, but it's not even just that we have mutual interests or that we're, quote, good people. It's that normal human beings want to socialize with and help other human beings and also feel useful to them. Sick, depraved, yes, but just people that have problems with empathy and socialization, like antisocial people. Not just, it's a curse. It's not something to not to mock it or anything like that. It's unfortunate that they don't receive satisfaction in being part of a group. They feel maybe like they're always being judged, or they don't feel like they can contribute, or they feel like everyone's trying to take advantage of them, or they don't know how to gauge social relationships. It's like an autistic thing almost, really. And I don't know what their problem is, but they don't do well in building that culture. But the rest of us that find benefit in seeing Red Gaze, talk about his gaze agenda, and Rob Casey just broke 100 backers, and silly, beautiful, gorgeous Magic Cop is going to get 150 backers soon. We're so freaking happy for him. We don't have a profit participation stake in it. We're not trying to get to sleep with those Magic Cop brothers.
You're right, Adam. It takes a community to grow it, and what the fandom, and you're absolutely right. And what we're here to, maybe let you know is the Fandom Menace is the kind of community too, where we say, yeah, you're damn right, and we celebrate that, of course, absolutely.
We just want to see people succeed and enjoy it and have a good time.
Exactly, and even if it's an industry that we need to build on our own to be able to have the industry that satisfies us, so be it. But the only way we're going to be able to do it is together.
Yeah, absolutely. Because honestly, it's not worth doing if we're not doing it together. We're not doing this to make money. We might make money. It'd be great if we make a lot of money. I think that there is a lot of business potential in what we're doing in a lot of ways. As you know, I have a little business background, business experience, but I'm not doing this as a business plan thing. I never knew I'd get meet so many really cool people that were just so freaking welcoming and decent.
And that's when we. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
No, I was going to say it's fantastic.
When we first started really reaching out to people, Mike and I, about the Phantom Menace volumes, one of the people that I reached out to was Ichibaka. He runs a blog called Disney Star Wars is Dumb. He's been accruing information, on everything that's been going on for so long. And I remember back months and months ago, somebody said, "Dude, you should write a book." And he said, "I don't know." And I told him, I said, "Do it." And then Ichibaka came out with an Indiegogo campaign to raise funding to write his book. Now that I had friends come to me and go, is this going to affect you? Because you're doing basically the same thing. And I said, no, it's not going to affect me. It's going to help, because that means there's another writer out there who's also passionate enough and inspired enough to start writing about the Fandom Menace, or about what is going on within culture, what he calls Geekergate. And I reached out to Itchy. I had him on my show. I promoted him. I always tried to throw his name out there, throw his Indiegogo out there, because I'm not afraid of that competition. It's not even welcoming that competition. It's seeing another independent creator doing something they're passionate about and helping them to grow. That is the greatest benefit.
We do it together, or we're not doing it at all. That's
not
the bottom line.
And it's not only that, because Itchy and Stephen and I have done a few shows together to visit and talk about our mutual book projects and stuff. And when Stephen says this competition thing, I guess selling books, we're selling books, we're competing for customers. But I believe, just like you believe, that the Comicsgate community, the fandom, the Indiesphere community, there's enough customers for everybody, and they want what they want, and they'll buy your book, my book, everybody's book if they like it, right? So that's not going to be an issue. For me, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, Stephen, you carry on with something.
No, we're all in the same. We're all in the same place. I just want to. Yeah, Red, go ahead, buddy.
I got a break for you right here, Simon. If you guys aren't familiar with Simon, he's an artist in Comicsgate, and he works on a lot of projects. Probably one of the hardest working artists in Comicsgate. And he threw this out here. He retweeted your book link with a drawing he did of Luke, and he says, if you want a high res of the Dark Luke, let him know. You can give it away as a printed trading card or just for yourselves. So check him out on Twitter if you haven't already.
Absolutely.
And you might want to get in touch with him if you need artwork or anything like that. He's
good and he's fast and he's very fair, and you'll be happy you work with Sim on something.
Simon is out of Montreal, I think, in Canada here, and I've been wanting to. Well, we've been Phantom Menace kind of co-buddies in the Twitter sphere, I guess, for a year or so. But I've been meaning to get it. I also am a contributor and writer at Bleeding Fool, and I've been meaning to get a hold of Simon, but he's always so busy all the time. But I finally got a hold of him, and I did get your message tonight, Simon. I know you're doing some wrench duties in there tonight, so thank you. And I'll get back to you because certainly thank you for this artwork. I just that's what threw off my train of thought. As a matter of fact, it was just I looked over and went, holy crap, because I usually don't try to follow Twitter when we're on, because then I get distracted. But so thank you, Simon. I would like to arrange what we were talking about in private messages with another fellow named Ryan. He's just a newer type of artist and writer and that sort of thing, and so I think it might be interesting. So we'll talk about that more, and thank you for your work here wrenching it up tonight for us, and thanks for reposting all that stuff for us.
Absolutely.
So I haven't Adam, you referenced your book, and I haven't heard. I don't know, could you explain it to me, because I'd like to know.
Sure. So College of the Dead, there it is.
There it is.
All right, so College of the Dead is a zombie apocalypse graphic novel. It's 140 pages. It's completely done. It's actually in print now, and it's already been delivered to backers. It's still in demand, which means it's still available if anybody wants to get a copy of it, which of course, I highly recommend. The story is about teachers and students fighting for their lives as the dead try to eat everyone in sight. So it's in the style of George Romero and The Walking Dead, but it's set on a college campus. And
Nice.
yeah, it's cool in that I don't know why someone hadn't done it before, where they're just like, all right, we're going to tell a story of college students with their professors being attacked by zombies during a zombie apocalypse. It just seems like a complete natural because um, just college life and all of the like youthful students and the dynamic between the professors and the students, and then they're all thrown together in that war zone type of situation. That's a perfect setting. So there's no like crazy magic or anything else in there. There are no angels flying around or anything like that. It's just
Okay.
the one major strange thing about it is that there's a zombie apocalypse, which is not a typical thing, but that's what makes it a cool story. So that goes on. The writer is Stefan Petruka. I created it, and he wrote and scripted it. So we collaborated. Stefan has written. He's known a lot for his X-Files comics that he wrote with Topps. I think he did that for like several years. I don't want to say the wrong number. I maybe did 100 issues or something. He actually worked with Charlie Adlard on those stories, the artist of The Walking Dead that's most popularly known.
Awesome.
So he was perfect for that. So it's a very cool straight zombie book. A lot of people tell me it's the pacing is very cinematic. They really kind of feel like they're in a movie. And even on the Indiegogo listing, you can kind of see there's about 12 pages of sequential art, and you can see like panel to panel to panel to panel. The story flows really well. Stefan did a fantastic job on it, and the artist did some really, really great work. So we're already working now on finishing College of the Dead book 2.
Nice.
That one we're going to do in full color. We're just doing the coloring. We're making some decisions about the coloring now, like exactly what the style is going to be. But that one will be finished over the next month or two. Well, it depends how fast the colorist works. And then we'll offer it probably in February of 2020. Probably not sooner, but I might get inspired to launch it sooner. But we're going to do it full color so we can really just make it, as absolutely super cool as we can.
I have a friend who's a young artist who, she's working on her craft out of high school, and she runs in a community of, I don't know, I don't want to call them weirdos because I was a weirdo too when I was a kid. But
Sure.
this would be that they would love this. I'm going to pass this on to them and
You know what?
try to
What
tell
they
you.
would probably like a lot about it. There's a tier that we have that includes what I'm calling an ash can. People have different definitions of what an ash can is, but what the ash can is it's 100. Just kind of looking over, actually. Well, I can show it on my screen, but it's a 100-page book. It's got 50 pages of the full script of what the writer wrote for the artist with photo references, and it's got 50 pages of the rough layouts that we approved to then tell him, yes, Javier, it's okay, finish the pages.
Ah, wow.
So, yeah, you really see the production process of one page on the left is the full script. On the right-hand side is the rough.
Oh, yeah.
So it's actually
She would love that.
Yeah, it's really educational. It's educational for me. Like, 'cause he's the writer, Stefan. He also teaches at a college graphic novel writing. So he's written professionally. He's used to working with students. And if you ever get to collaborate with creative talent that's also a teacher, it's really, really good because they're like, all right, they know they need to be a good communicator. They know they need to be patient, and they find ways of explaining things in very coherent ways because they're used to talking to like a lot of confused students that don't know what the hell's going on. So Stefan is like, was very patient and communicative, and I was able to let him like do almost everything just completely hands off. He also worked in such a great disciplined way where he gave us we discussed what the book would be. I gave him a lot of references of what I was thinking of in terms of characters. He digested all of that and then wrote a summary back. And then I approved the summary in like 2 stages with some notes. And then he was able to go ahead and do the script and then do the full script. And then he was doing approvals of the work that was coming in from Javier to make sure that his work was represented properly. He was just a great professional to work with.
Nice.
Yeah, and he did all of College of the Dead too as well. So yeah, we got really it's good to take the time to work with the people that you really click with. And if you ever hire someone to do something creatively, you just want to make sure that they've really done it before and they have some kind of background. Yeah, have you seen what Ethan Van Sciver's ash can of Cyberfrog 1998 looks like? You know, it's full color. Ethan's thing. It's like 20 pages of sequential art.
Yeah,
It's
it's
full
just
color.
another story.
It's just another story. It happens to be physically a little bit smaller than a regular comic. It's absolutely absurdly gorgeous. It's not any roughs or missing bits and pieces of scraps of art. It's just gorgeous. He's going to start selling them, I guess, separately in a couple of months after all the orders are shipped. And people will definitely want to be looking for that Cyberfrog ash can. But my other friend, Carl O'Rowe, who is doing Deathsworn, has this 60 page, I don't know how many pages, Carl, sorry, something, I think it's 60 page. He's calling it an ash can as well. It's a complete separate story that's done in like a manga type of style for Deathsworn. It's a perfect bound separate book. So it's like, it's not an ash can. It's a whole separate book. So yeah, my book is, I guess, more of a making of book maybe than an ash can, but.
Yeah, I'm going to pick that up. Adam. That looks great, man.
Yo,
Adam,
thanks.
Simon's really hitting you tonight.
Yeah, I love Simon. Simon's awesome. Simon always does that because he knows he retweets my stuff all the time. So like I have to just put
he
up
has
with
carte blanche.
Yeah, he gets away with murder. Well, he was on camera earlier on another stream with me tonight, which was a thrill because you don't always get Simon on camera.
I got to tell you, Simon on that Drawn and Backhold stream, when he switched to the camera and there was another Simon in the background, that was one of the best moments ever.
Yeah, Drawn and Backhold is a drawing show sponsored by the fine people at War Campaign, and I do mean fine people sincerely. They're fun, good, especially Comicsgate hardcore forever, ride or die. There to protect. They're gonna love I think they're gonna love the Phantom Menace stuff. I can't speak for them, but yeah, they're great, fun people with a lot of heart. And they do that drawing show, Drawn and Backhold, who Vinny Tardamella keeps winning because he's such a freaking passionate artist. I think he's really finding his calling working with these guys. He does a lot of really tremendous art. Vinny is going to be drawing not a backup story, but a story and part of a Cyberfrog anthology story. He was selected with a very few number of other artists, 2 other artists, to do a, I think it's a 24-page story, 25-page story. Yeah, they're going to do new Cyberfrog art written by Ethan. For Ethan to do a special Comicsgate comic where he's providing a free extra Cyberfrog Comicsgate comic to anybody who was he'll explain it. He explains
Adam, is this all public knowledge?
Yeah, he said it's on a screen.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Sure. Yeah, Vinny Tardamella. Yeah, thanks for keeping me out of trouble.
Sure.
No, Vinny Tardamella is drawing like, I believe, a 5-page story or maybe an 8-page story, something like that. And then Ed Morganis, I think is his last name, Morgus. He's a really good artist. And then Kyung Lee was going to provide 10 pages, but he may not have the schedule availability. That we'll see. But yeah, Ethan's announced publicly that he's doing this extra comic as a way to thank people who've been supporting Comicsgate, and they'll be allowed. Awesome. Yeah, so people will be able to select it on a tier that he's offering, and exactly. I'm not exactly sure how they get it, but it'll be part of the order for the next Cyberfrog comic. I think even if you haven't, it's something you can get free, even if you haven't backed Cyberfrog, and he's not even going to ask people. Basically, like you just vouch for yourself that, like, yeah, I was a Comicsgate supporter and I'd like the extra free comic, and he just gives it to
beautiful.
you.
That is beautiful. Yeah, I'm actually going to have to head out soon. I have work in the morning, but before I left, I wanted to say that if honestly, there's very few people that really inspired me enough to write this, and Ethan Van Sciver was one of them. It was watching him, just produce Cyberprog and sell it, the passion he had in it, the collaborations with different creators, how he helped other creators to get their names out, how he helped other people to sell their independent work. That for me, I've that really inspired me to do this. I mean, it was Jeremy and Jeff and Ethan that really gave me the mustard to do what I'm doing right now. And like, I understand how I hail Caesar because Comicsgate does, and I respect him, and I understand what he means to you guys. I'm not Comicsgate, so I may not fully understand the passion or the respect that you have. But in as far as Fandom Menace, I look at him as one of the fathers of the Fandom Menace, and I see what he does, and I see the creativity and the culture that he has helped to create in Comicsgate and the Fandom Menace as far as us supporting one another. And that's something that I want to bring into the literary sphere with books. And that is directly a result of being a fan of Ethan Van Sciver.
That's awesome. I'm really happy to see you guys doing this, and Ichibaka with his book, because I would love to see the Fandom Menace put out projects of their own, just like Comicsgate, we got to create our own stuff, and I think novels are the perfect way to go, because obviously film's a little bit expensive, but novels are totally doable. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people who still read out there. So I'd love to see more of these projects come along. And
when Stephen is going to leave here soon, I will talk about Itchy, because when I got distracted earlier, that's what we were in the conversation of.
Yeah. Mike, you want to take
yeah, we'll give it another 5 or 10 minutes, because I also have work in the morning. But
right.
I'll definitely give you that time, Mike.
No worries.
But all right, I'm gonna head out. Adam, it was nice meeting you. Gaze, do me a favor, because I may forget. Will you link me his Twitter and his YouTube page for me? Because I may just completely forget it within the next 10 minutes. It's just I gotta get all my stuff together. Yeah, thank you very much, Adam. It was wonderful meeting you. I'd like to have you on my channel sometime.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Absolutely.
All right. And Mike, thank you for closing it out, brother. I will speak to you tomorrow.
No worries. You drive safe and be safe home.
I will, guys. Take care. Hail.
I will. See you
Good night,
soon.
brother.
Hail.
Shelljack TJC says Comic Book Plus Ashcan, which is a reference to my campaign. Is that a package for smokers? LOL. That's funny because of the ashtray. I like it. All right. Well, let's let this gentleman have his piece. Adam will not interrupt.
So our friend Ichibaka now, as Stephen was saying, in our community over here, we have a couple of what we call archivists, and I guess me and Stephen have kind of dubbed them that, endearingly. But we have Data Racer 117, who most people would know that crosses over into Comicsgate quite frequently with Dual News, and Ichibaka, of course. So please add all of them. Itchy, the thing about the competition thing, as far as the creativity in the community, I don't even consider Itchy's book to be competition for our book. They're not even in the same category of literature. Our book is a community reflection, sort of like a yearbook, I guess you could say, inevitably. And Itchy's book is more of an approach to how are the mechanisms that social justice warriors or social engineers, what are the mechanisms that they use to take control of intellectual properties? Why are they doing it this way? How do they manipulate things, and why are they doing it in this way, basically? And so Itchy wants to explore what kinds of tools as creators and owners of IPs and franchise, and what can we do to avoid these sorts of hostile takeovers of our properties, basically. And so his book is problems, but it's also a solutions book, and that is not even anywhere even remotely similar to what we are writing. And so to be able to showcase a variety, it's a variety of talent, just like it is in Comicsgate. And so, Red was quite correct when he said, more projects. And the thing I like about the Fandom Menace portion of it is that people are already creating every day. Look at the collective. I mean, the Fandom Collective, you might as well have cable. You can go on any time of the day and you can find something that somebody's talking about that you might find interesting. And that's an amazing thing that was born out of the Fandom Menace as well. And so people are creating every day. There's videographers, there's artists, there's writers, there's pencilers. I mean, my favorite are the pencilers, obviously, but it crosses over everywhere. And so make sure you support each other, follow each other's projects, share each other's projects, work with each other when you can. The only way the industry is going to be built is with us. And this is a family, and we fight, and sometimes we get in brawls and beat the crap out of each other, but then we pull each other up and we have a beer and we move along to the next day. And that's what families do. And that's what the other side can't do, because they're not a family. Okay. And so that's what we have here, and that's what we should maintain, and we shouldn't forget it, and we should be proud of it. And I thank everybody that's listening, and I thank Gaze again for having us on and showcasing our work. It means a lot to me. And thanks for everyone that came to watch, obviously. And nice to meet you, Adam, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Great to meet you, man.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Before we go, you guys want to tell us where we can find you on Twitter and YouTube?
You go ahead first, Adam.
I'm on Adam Post Speaks. Just Google Adam Post Speaks. You'll find me. Actually, AdamPostSpeaks.com even will get you there. To my YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe to that. Watch my videos. You will crack up and love them. And I'm on Twitter at Comics We Love. And to remember and see College of the Dead, go to collegeofthedead.com. That's me.
And I'm Mike at 60Recce is my Twitter handle. And you can check out some of my work at Bleeding Fool. And you can find me on Twitter if you need a DM. My DMs are open. And of course, if you can check out our project and you're able to contribute, like I tell you, for all of our independent creators, if you're able to contribute, please do. And if you are able to, we thank you in advance. And I hope everyone enjoys the work that we put out there every day, all the independent creators and the wonderful work in our communities. And please, everyone, be safe and look after each other.
Yep. And if you don't have the money to support these projects, all you got to do is retweet, share them on Facebook. If you can retweet and say something nice that's sincere about it, if you believe in it, if you say, "Hey, I really think this is a cool project, we ought to all look at this," or something like that, you can do that. That helps. And if you have the money to support it, then you're helping bring these things into existence. But you're also helping bring them into existence just by retweeting and helping to promote them.
Absolutely.
So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys coming. Really like discussing this stuff. We'll have you back. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody in the chat for coming. We appreciate each and every one of you. If you're not on board with the Gaze Agenda, go ahead and do that now. Subscribe. It would be very, very much appreciated. And yeah, we'll
Go
be
Gaze.
bringing
Go
more
Gaze.
of these kinds of shows to you. So yeah, until next time, have a good night, and yeah, be good to each other.
Good night, everybody.
Cheers.